Wherever you are tonight, lying down, sitting up, or simply leaning into the quiet, let the next few moments belong only to you. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your jaw unclench. If your thoughts are still moving quickly, you do not need to chase them. You can let them pass, like cars gliding through distant streets, their headlights. Imagine, for a moment, a lake at the edge of night. Not a dramatic lake, not a stormy one. Just a wide, still body of water that has learned the patient art of holding reflections. The surface is dark, but not black, more like deep indigo ink warmed by a trace of moonlight. Along the shore, reeds stand like soft brushes. A few stones rest half submerged, their edges rounded by years of gentle contact. And above the lake, the sky opens in layers. Violet fading to blue, blue fading deeper still. You do not need to see every detail clearly. If the lake is hazy, that is perfectly fine. Haze belongs to night. Haze belongs to the mind when it begins to rest. This is not a place you came to solve anything. This is a place you came to feel something simple. The sense that the world can be held gently. Before we drift deeper into tonight's gentle journey, remember to subscribe to Sleepy Insight channel. Here, you'll always find peaceful stories that soothe the heart and quiet the mind. Where are you listening from tonight? Leave a comment. Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. And now, with that small lantern of connection lit, let us return to the water. Somewhere on the far side of this lake, there is a narrow wooden pier, worn smooth by decades of quiet footsteps. A single lantern hangs from a hook, its light a soft gold that does not fight the darkness, only warms it. On the pier rests an old notebook, the kind with thick paper and a cloth spine. Its pages hold small sketches, a crescent moon, a ringed planet, a few constellations drawn as if they were remembered from childhood rather than measured with instruments. The ink has faded into brown, like tea stains on warm paper. Beside the notebook sits a folded map, creased at the same places again and again. It is not a map of roads, but of the skylines connecting stars, tiny notes in the margins, dates written in careful handwriting. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the pencil's scratch. Slow and patient, like someone recording wonder so it will not be lost. That pier has been waiting for you, not as a task, but as a gentle threshold. In a moment, we will step onto it, and the night will widen. You can almost feel its calm invitation. Step closer, turn the page, and let wonder become a quiet companion. The lake is quiet enough that you can hear the smallest movements. A moth brushing past a blade of grass. A faint, rhythmic hush where water meets sand. Even your own breath, if you listen for it, as though it were a tide coming in and out. There is something comforting about a lake at night, because it does not demand anything of you. It simply exists, and in that existence, it offers you a simple invitation. Slow down. When was the last time you looked up at the night sky and felt at peace? Maybe it was on a trip you remember, in fragments. A porch, an ember glow, a quiet stretch of road, where the stars felt unexpectedly close. Or maybe it was a brief glance upward after a long day, when the constellations looked sharp and steady, and you remembered, just for a second, that your life is held inside something vast. Tonight, we're going to explore a thought that sounds big, but can be held softly. Reality. Not the loud, argumentative kind of reality. Not the kind people fight about, but the reality you live inside every day, the one that comes through your senses, moves through your memories, and settles into your heart as a feeling of, this is my life. If the word reality feels too heavy, you can imagine it as the lake itself. A surface that seems simple until you notice reflections, ripples, and depths, because reality is not a single thing. It is layered, filtered, interpreted, and shared. It is shaped by physics, held together by perception, enriched by meaning, and softened by consciousness. The world sends signals. Light enters your eyes. Vibrations reach your ears. But what you experience, color, sound, texture, arrives as a story your mind assembles from those signals, not to trick you, but to help you move through each day with grace. And because we are moving slowly, we can allow ourselves to notice a few of those hidden layers. The way moonlight lets you see faint stones beneath clear water. We will not rush. We will not pile on complicated terms. We will move one idea at a time, like stepping stones that are close enough to feel safe. First, let's stay with something simple. The feeling of solidity. Your bed feels solid. The floor feels solid. The walls feel solid. And yet, one of the gentlest surprises in science is that solidity is not what it seems. On the smallest scales, the world is mostly open space. If an atom were expanded until it was the size of a stadium, the nucleus would be a tiny speck near the middle, and the electrons would be so far away that most of the stadium would feel empty. The solidness you feel is not a packed material. It is the result of invisible forces refusing to overlap, keeping structures stable without needing them to be stuffed full. Notice what happens when you hold that idea gently. The chair beneath you is not a heavy block of matter. It is a pattern, a relationship, a set of forces that hold shape. If you demand certainty, it can feel strange. But if you let it rest in your mind the way a smooth stone rests in your palm, it becomes comforting, because it means you are not trapped in a rigid universe. You are living inside something flexible, intricate, and quietly reliable. The deeper layers may be strange. Certainty may sometimes dissolve into probability or perspective, but the experience of living within reality remains steady and deeply familiar. And steadiness is a gift. You do not have to hold the universe together. You do not have to understand every layer to be safe. The cosmos moves at its own pace, guided by its own laws, unconcerned with whether anyone happens to notice. Now, as the lake remains still in your eye imagination, consider a second gentle layer. Perception. Perception is the doorway through which you meet the world. And the doorway is not a rigid frame. It adjusts. It predicts. It smooths. It sometimes makes small mistakes in order to keep the flow of experience stable. You have seen this in tiny ways. You read a sentence and your mind fixes a typo without telling you. You glance at a clock and for a moment, time feels stitched together. You hear your name in noise and then realize it wasn't there. These are not flaws. They are evidence of care. Your brain is not trying to create confusion. It is trying to create a usable world. And this leads to a soft discovery that will become a guiding thread for our night. Each person lives inside a slightly different version of the world. Not because the external universe changes from person to person, but because the internal doorway is unique. Your history shapes your attention. Your experiences shape your expectations. Your culture, language, and memories shape what stands out as meaningful. The overlap between these personal worlds is large enough to build friendships and shared stories. And yet, beneath that overlap, there are subtle differences, quiet variations, like different shades of blue in the same night sky. Illusion and truth, rather than competing, weave together to create the world you know. When you hear the word illusion, you might think it means fake. But here, illusion simply means complexity. It means the world you experience is a collaboration between what exists outside you and the remarkable machinery inside you that interprets it. And there is something deeply soothing about that, because it means you do not need to be a perfect observer. You do not need perfect clarity. You do not need perfect knowledge to feel grounded. You only need to be here, gently participating, return to the lake again. Look at the water's surface. See how it reflects the stars, not with crisp certainty, but with a soft shimmer. If a breeze passes, the stars ripple. The sky has not changed. The water has not changed, but the experience shifts. This is what it can feel like to live inside layered reality. The deepest layers, physics, fields, particles, time, continue whether or not you name them. And the layer you inhabit, this moment, this feeling, this quiet awareness continues too. Both are real. Both matter, and neither needs to threaten the other. Tonight's story will not ask you to do mental gymnastics. It will simply invite you to notice, slowly, that the world is larger than it appears, and that this largeness is not a problem to solve, but a space to rest within. In the next part of our gentle journey, we will step away from the lake for a moment and walk into a quiet observatory, an old one, with warm wood and brass instruments that glint softly in lamplight. There, we will look at a map of the sky and discover that even time, like water, can behave in ways that feel more like a lake than a river. For now, just let the idea hover in the air, like mist above the water. Reality has layers, and we drift through them, gently. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself, and when you are ready, we will take one slow step forward toward the observatory, toward the starlight, toward the quiet expansion, waiting just beyond the shoreline. The path from the lake to the observatory is not long, but it feels like a transition between worlds. You step off the pier and onto a narrow trail where the ground is packed and smooth, as if many gentle feet have walked here without hurry. The air is cool in a way that comforts rather than chills. Somewhere in the trees, a night bird makes a single, soft call, and then the silence returns, as if the sound was only a brief ripple on the surface of the dark. Above you, the sky remains wide and patient. There is an old observatory nearby, built on a small rise so it can see the horizon without obstruction. It is not the kind of modern facility filled with bright screens and sharp beeps. This one belongs to another era, an era of brass and wood, of handwritten notes, of lanterns carried carefully from room to room. As you approach, you notice a warm glow in one high window. Someone has left a lamp on, the way a person leaves a porch light for a friend returning late. The door is slightly open, not as an invitation to trespass, but as if the building itself has grown accustomed to welcome. Inside, the air smells faintly of cedar and dust and old paper. The floorboards creak in a friendly way, as if they are simply acknowledging your presence. You step softly, not because you must be quiet, but because quiet feels natural here. In the center of the room stands a large telescope, its tube angled upward toward the dome. Around it are shelves of star charts, notebooks, and a few small instruments that catch the lamplight. A sextant with worn edges, a compass in a velvet-lined box, a pocket watch with a face like moonstone. On a long table lies a map of the night sky. It is spread open, held at the corners by smooth stones. The paper is thick and slightly yellowed, and the ink lines, constellations, coordinates, notes look like a careful conversation between the human mind and the heavens. You can imagine the person who drew these lines. Maybe it was a quiet astronomer who loved the way starlight felt like distant TMA. Maybe it was a sailor who needed the sky to guide him safely home. Or maybe it was simply someone like you. Someone who, at some point in life, looked up and felt something soften inside. If you like, you can place your hand on the table in your mind, feeling the coolness of the wood beneath your fingertips. Let that sensation anchor you. Let it remind you that this is not a lecture. This is a slow walk through wonder. Tonight, the observatory will help us meet another layer of reality. Time. Time is a strange companion. It can feel fast when we are busy, slow when we are lonely, and almost absent when we are fully absorbed. It can stretch in grief and compress in joy. And yet, beneath those human experiences, time also has a quiet structure, one that the universe follows with remarkable consistency. But even that consistency has its own softness. A small clock ticks somewhere in the room. The sound is not loud. It is a gentle, steady pulse. Tick, 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 like a heart that does not rush. Now imagine a second clock, not in the room, but far away, on a satellite drifting above Earth, moving quickly through space. That clock ticks too, and here is a calm, beautiful fact. The two clocks do not agree perfectly. The satellite clock will run slightly differently, because motion and gravity subtly change the way time flows. This is not poetry. It is a measured truth, one that engineers account for when they guide signals across the sky. Even the systems that help us navigate through cities, find our way home, or locate a distant address, must gently correct for the way time bends. You can hold that idea like a warm stone. Time is not a single universal river. It has currents, and the currents depend on where you are, how fast you move, and how deeply you sit inside gravity's embrace. If that sounds unsettling, let it become soothing instead, because it means reality is not harshly rigid. It is responsive. It is shaped by relationship. In the observatory, you walk toward a window and look out. The lake is still visible, a dark oval in the landscape. Beyond it, the land slopes down into quiet fields, and then into shadow. In the distance, a line of hills holds the horizon like a gentle boundary. Above, the stars hang in their familiar patterns. Orion, perhaps, or the slow arc of the Milky Way. Scattered like pale dust across velvet, the stars look steady, but they are not still. Earth is turning beneath your feet. The whole planet is moving. The entire solar system is drifting through the galaxy. Motion is everywhere, even when it feels like rest. And yet, here you are, safe, still, breathing. This is one of the tender paradoxes of existence. The universe moves endlessly, and still it contains quiet places. Now, let's return to the map on the table. The map shows not only where stars appear in the sky, but also, in a way, when they appear. Because starlight is not immediate. When you look at a star, you are not seeing it as it is right now. You are seeing it as it was when the light began its journey. Some stars are close enough that the light takes only a few years to reach us. Others are so far that their light began traveling before the first cities rose, before the first stories were written down, before the first human eyes looked up in the way yours can look up tonight. So the sky is a museum of time, a living archive, a soft library of ancient light. Imagine that for a moment. Every point of light above you is also a point in the past, not the past as memory, but the past as physics time, preserved in traveling photons. If you let that settle, it can feel deeply calming, because it means the universe holds history without effort. It does not clutch it or mourn it, it simply carries it forward, woven into light. And perhaps that is why, when people feel overwhelmed, they often look at the sky. The sky reminds us that our lives are held inside something vast, something patient, something that has been unfolding for a long time and will continue unfolding long after tonight becomes a memory. You might notice, gently, that your own memories work in a similar way. A memory is not the past itself. It is a form of light that traveled through you, an experience transformed into a trace. When you remember, you do not retrieve a perfect recording. You rebuild, you recreate, you assemble fragments into a story that feels true enough to hold. Your mind is a quiet observatory too. It keeps maps, it keeps charts, It stores the outlines of faces and the warmth of certain voices, the color of an evening sky you once saw, the feel of someone's hand in yours, the smell of rain on pavement, and like the stars, your memories arrive with distance. Some feel close and bright, as if you could reach them. Others feel far, faint, and softened by Time's gentle erosion. This is not failure. This is how reality stays kind. If every memory remained sharp, the mind would never rest. So it blurs the edges, it dims some details. It keeps what matters most, often as a feeling rather than a photograph. In the observatory, you find an old notebook open to a page with a simple sketch, a river drawn with a few flowing lines, and beside it, a short sentence written in careful script. The self is like a river, always changing, yet recognizable. You do not need to analyze it, just feel it. The river metaphor is gentle because it does not demand a fixed identity. It allows you to be fluid. It allows you to have changed since you were younger and still be you. It allows your worries to be temporary currents rather than permanent traits. If tonight you are tired, you are not broken. You are simply a river in a slower season. And Time, in its quiet way, is also seasonal. Look at the pocket watch on the table. Its hands move in tiny steps, dividing the night into measurable slices. But your body does not sleep in slices. It sleeps in waves. It drifts, it sinks, it rises, it returns. Maybe that is why the idea of Time bending does not have to be alarming. Because you already know, deep down, that Time is not only mechanical, it is lived. Now, in this warm room, let's introduce a small, soothing curiosity. Something that will carry us into the next part of the story. On the highest shelf, there is a glass jar filled with fine sand. It looks ordinary at first glance, like something collected from a beach. But when you lift it toward the lamplight, you notice the sand is mixed with tiny, shimmering grains that catch the gold glow in a way that feels almost star-like. A label on the jar reads, in faded ink, "Meteorite dust, collected after the autumn shower." Meteorite dust, not a metaphor, not a dream. Actual fragments from space, small enough to drift down and settle among Earth's quiet places. You can imagine how it arrived. A rock traveling for ages, entering the atmosphere, burning into a streak of light, and leaving behind a whisper of itself that eventually landed on sand, on soil, on the edge of a lake. If you have ever wished for a sign that you are connected to something larger, here is one. The universe touches Earth gently, all the Time, and the dust in that jar is a reminder that the boundary between here and out there is softer than we think. In the next part, we will step back outside and follow that softness walking beneath a meteor shower that does not frighten the night, but decorates it like quiet fireflies in the high darkness. For now, let the observatory hold you. Let the clock's ticking become a lullaby for you, right now. If tonight's story is stirring a tender thought in you, you do not need to chase it. You can simply let it rest beside you, like the notebook on the table open, patient, waiting. And when you are ready, we will step into the open air again and let the sky show us how even falling stars can be gentle. When you leave the observatory, the door closes behind you with a soft wooden sigh, as if the building is settling back into its own private dream. The lamp in the high window continues to glow, a small square of gold in the dark, and for a moment you can imagine that the room inside remains exactly as you left it. The telescope angled upward, the notebook open, the jar of meteorite dust waiting quietly in the lamplight. Outside, the air feels a little different, cooler, wider, more alive. The path slopes gently downward toward the lake and then curves away into a meadow that stretches like a dark blanket beneath the sky. The grass is still. The trees are quiet. Even the insects seem to have agreed to speak in softer voices tonight. Above you, the stars are sharper now, as if the night has deepened into clarity. As the night deepens softly, and then, almost as if the sky remembers its own secret, you see the first one, a thin line of light, quick and delicate, drawn across the darkness and gone. A second follows, slower, like a sigh, a meteor shower, not the kind that makes you gasp and sit upright with excitement, but the kind that invites you to watch without hurry, as if you are listening to a calm piece of music where each note arrives with space around it. You find a place to sit, perhaps on a smooth stone, perhaps on a patch of soft grass, if you prefer. You can imagine a blanket already laid out for you. The fabric, cool at first, and then warming beneath your body. Let your eyes settle upward. Let your breath settle downward. There is nothing you need to do to earn the night. It is already here, already offering itself. A meteor is not a star. It is a small piece of stone or metal, often no larger than a grain of sand, entering Earth's atmosphere at high speed. The air, resisting it, heats it until it glows, and for a few seconds, it becomes a bright thread, an ember line stitched into the sky. Then it disappears. Sometimes, a meteor burns away completely. Sometimes, a fragment survives and falls gently to the ground, becoming part of the Earth's quiet collection of things that arrived from elsewhere. This is one of the soft miracles of being alive on this planet. We live beneath a sky that occasionally sends us reminders of the wider universe, and it does so without violence, without announcement, without demand, just light, falling light. As you watch the meteors, you might notice something tender inside yourself, a sense of scale, perhaps, a sense that your worries, while real, are not the only reality, a sense that your mind can loosen its grip, even if only a little, when it looks at something so vast and so patient. If you are listening tonight, after a long day, you may feel your thoughts still trying to plan, still trying to solve. That is normal. The mind is an instrument designed for survival and navigation. But here, under the meteor shower, you can let the instrument rest on the table for a while. You can let the night hold the map. And as the sky holds your gaze, we can step gently into another layer of reality, one that is always with you, even when you do not notice it. The layer of interpretation. When you see a meteor, what do you actually see? You see a streak of light, yes. But light itself is simply energy traveling. It becomes a streak only when your eyes receive it, and your brain turns it into an eye image, in a quiet way. Your mind is painting the sky inside you. It is doing this with everything. The colors you see are not stored in objects the way water is stored in a cup. Color is your brain's translation of light's wavelengths into experience. The world offers wavelengths. Your mind offers meaning. Sound is similar. Outside you, there are vibrations. Inside you, there is the feeling of a voice, the hush of wind, the distant rhythm of water. Your ears receive motion, and your brain turns that motion into music. Even now is an interpretation. The present moment feels immediate, but your brain is constantly stitching together tiny delay signals, arriving at slightly different times, so that experience feels smooth and continuous. This is not deceit. This is kindness. Your mind is an editor, a quiet filmmaker, assembling the raw footage of reality into a story you can live inside. It removes glitches, it fills gaps, it smooths transitions, it chooses what matters, based on your needs and your past. And because each mind edits differently, each person lives inside a slightly different version of the world. If you hold that fact gently, it becomes compassionate. It means that when someone else reacts differently than you would, it does not always mean they are wrong or you are wrong. It may simply mean their inner film is cut with different scenes, different lighting, different emphasis. Their reality is shaded differently. Yours is shaded differently too. And yet, here you are, together with countless other listeners, beneath countless other skies, sharing something that overlaps. This quiet moment, this soft attention, this gentle drift. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. Somewhere, another listener is hearing this same story with different sounds around them. A city hum, a ceiling fan, waves against a dock. Their mind will paint its own lake, its own sky, and yet, the calm can still arrive. What matters is not perfect silence, but a gentle permission. You are allowed to let go. Even here, right now, another meteor crosses the sky. It is brighter than the last, a brief ribbon of pale green and gold. Your body does not tense, your mind does not leap forward. You simply watch it, and it passes, and the sky returns to stillness. In that stillness, you might notice how your awareness moves. It can zoom in tightly, like a camera focusing on a single point of light. It can widen out, like a slow panorama of the whole dome of night. It can slip inward, toward memory, toward feeling, toward thought. Awareness is another layer of reality, one that feels personal and intimate. You may have experienced this. The way a familiar song can transport you to a room you haven't seen in years, or the way a certain smell can summon a childhood street. Those moments are evidence that your mind carries time in a way that is not linear. The past is not gone. It is stored as patterns that can be relit, like meteors. A meteor is a brief ignition of something ancient. A memory is a brief ignition of something lived. Both are light made from travel. Perhaps that is why the sky so often stirs reflection. The stars are old light. The meteors are traveling fragments. And you, too, are a traveler, moving through the night, through years, through seasons, through changes. If you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or beyond, you have already carried more than you realize. You have lived through moments you did not expect to survive. You have adapted to losses, to shifts, to surprising joys. You have learned the shape of your own resilience, even if you rarely name it. Tonight is not asking you to be strong. Tonight is offering you permission to be soft, to let your inner muscles relax, to let the day loosen its hold. Another small curiosity floats into your awareness. The jar of meteorite dust in the observatory. You can imagine those grains again. Tiny shimmering pieces from elsewhere. There is a gentle truth here that many people find comforting. Your own body is made from elements that were forged in stars. Carbon, oxygen, iron. These were formed in ancient cosmic processes long before Earth existed in its current form. The universe does not feel distant when you remember that it is also within you, not as a slogan, as a quiet fact. And if the universe is within you, then perhaps you do not need to fight it. Perhaps you can belong to it the way the lake belongs to the night, calmly, naturally, without effort. The meteor shower continues, but now the streaks are fewer, spaced farther apart. This spacing is part of its beauty. It teaches patience. It teaches you to let attention rest in the gaps. Between streaks, you notice the Milky Way, a faint, cloud-like band. It is not a single object. It is a sea of distant stars, their light blending into a soft glow. It looks like mist made of time. You might notice your breath again. Inhale. Slow. Exhale. Softer. If thoughts arrive, let them drift like thin clouds. They do not need to be chased. They do not need to be solved tonight. Because even reality, in its deepest sense, does not demand your constant effort. It unfolds whether or not you are watching. The stars burn, the planet turns, the lake reflects, the night holds everything in quiet balance. And you, right now, can do the simplest, most human thing. Rest. One more meteor appears, and this team, it seems to fall toward the horizon. as if it were dropping into the lake itself. For a moment, you can almost imagine a faint ripple across the dark water, as though the sky and the lake are speaking to each other. This image, sky touching water, light touching darkness, becomes our gentle bridge into the next part of the story. Because there is one more layer of reality we haven't yet explored, and it is one of the most soothing, the layer of emptiness. Not emptiness as loneliness, but emptiness as space. The open room inside atoms, the gaps between thoughts, the silence between sounds, the dark between stars. It turns out that emptiness is not a lack. It is what allows everything else to move. In the next part, we will return to the lake and look closely at the way ripples travel, the way reflections form, and the way invisible forces hold the world together without needing to be heavy. For now, stay beneath the meteor shower a moment longer. If tonight's sky reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. And if this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. Just a few words, like a small pebble placed on the shore. Then, whenever you are ready, we will follow the path back to the water and let the lake teach us how the universe can be mostly space and still feel so steady. You return to the lake slowly, as if the night itself has placed a gentle hand on your shoulder and is guiding you back to the shoreline. The meadow gives way to reeds and darker soil. The air near the water is cooler, slightly damp, carrying the clean scent of stone and algae and distant pine. The lake is still there, exactly as it was, wide, quiet, patient. It does not ask whether you understood the stars. It does not quiz you about Time. It simply holds the reflections it is given, and in doing so, it teaches a kind of kindness that is easy to forget in the bright hours of day. You do not need to force anything to be here. You find a place close to the edge, where the ground slopes into the water so gently that the lake seems to be resting, not pressing, against the land. If you like, you can imagine sitting on a low wooden bench, weathered and smooth. Or you can sit on a rock, warmed earlier by sun, and now cooled into a calm neutrality. Above, the sky is a deep velvet. The meteor shower has thinned, but every so often, a faint streak appears, like a quiet punctuation mark, written into darkness. Now, look at the water. At first, it seems like a simple mirror. A small breeze passes, and the mirror breaks into ripples. A ripple travels outward in rings, widening as it moves, softening at the edges, blending back into stillness. There is something in that ripple that feels like an answer to an unspoken question. How can something so soft move so far? How can a small touch create a wide change? And here, by the lake, we can explore one of the most comforting truths in science. Much of the world is held together by things you cannot see. Not by heavy chains, not by rigid bars, but by invisible relationships, forces that behave more like the lake's ripples than like a locked door. Let your attention move to your own hand for a moment. Perhaps it is resting on your lap. Perhaps it is tucked beneath a blanket. If you can feel it, notice the quiet pressure where skin meets fabric, where fabric meets air. That pressure is not solidity in the old sense. It is a gentle refusal of overlap. It is the world saying, softly, this is here, and that is there. On the smallest scales, the atoms that make your hand are mostly open space. The nucleus is tiny, and the rest is a region where electrons are likely to be. Likely to be sounds uncertain, but uncertainty here is not chaos. It is a kind of softness like fog that is still guided by wind. And when your hand rests against fabric, the atoms in your skin do not truly press against the atoms in the cloth, the way two solid blocks would press in a cartoon. Instead, the electromagnetic forces between charged particles create a gentle boundary, a cushion of invisible insistence. It is as if countless tiny hands are holding you apart with perfect coordination. You cannot see them, but you feel them as firmness, as support, as the simple comfort of a surface beneath you. When you think of it that way, the world becomes less harsh. The universe is not only made of objects, it is also made of agreements. Agreements between charges, agreements between fields, agreements between motion and gravity, agreements between light and your eyes, agreements between sound and your ears. And here is a soothing thought. You have been carried by these agreements your entire life, without needing to supervise them. The lake does not need to concentrate to reflect the moon. It simply does. You do not need to concentrate to be supported. You simply are. A faint breeze moves across the water again. The reeds sway in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Their movement is small, but it makes the shadows shift. And the shifting shadows remind you that the night is alive with gentle motion, even when it feels like stillness. Now, if you look closely, you can see that the lake's surface is not only reflecting the sky, it is also reflecting you, your presence, your warmth, your quiet awareness. In a way, your awareness is another invisible force. You might not think of consciousness as a force, but it shapes your reality all the same. It decides what is foreground and what is background. It turns a ripple into a symbol, a streak of light into a memory, a quiet hour into a refuge. And as your mind softens, you may notice that the hardness of your day also begins to soften. Not because your responsibilities vanish, but because their edges blur a little, like the shoreline in moonlight. The lake offers you a gentle metaphor for the self. A self is not a statue carved from stone. It is more like water held in a basin, always moving, always adjusting, always taking the shape of the moment, while still remaining recognizably itself. If you have ever felt, "I'm not the same person I used to be," you can let that be true without fear. The water is not the same from one hour to the next, and yet the lake remains the lake. You may have changed, and yet you remain you. A ripple reaches the shore and dissolves into the sand. Another ripple follows. The pattern continues, not dramatic, not urgent, just steady. This is how much of reality works. Steady patterns emerging from invisible rules. There is a quiet elegance to that idea. It means you do not need to control every detail. You can trust the pattern. Think of the way your breath happens. Even when you forget to pay attention, your body continues. It has its own physics, its own rhythms, its own gentle intelligence. And the universe, too, has its rhythms. The moon pulls the water, and tides rise and fall. The earth turns, and day returns after night. The stars burn, and their light travels across emptiness in long, patient arcs. Even emptiness, we are learning, is not nothing. In physics, empty space is not a dead void. It is a quiet stage where fields exist, where potentials rest, where energy can ripple. You do not need to hold the technical details, just keep the feeling. The universe is filled with subtle presence, even in what looks like absence. It is like the air in this night. You cannot see it, and yet it touches you. It carries scents. It carries sound. It cools your skin. It holds the faint warmth of the day and the promise of morning. In the same way, the space inside atoms is not a hollow emptiness. It is a region where relationships live, where forces balance, where stability is created without needing thick substance. That is why the world can be mostly space and still feel so steady. And perhaps that is why you, too, can feel empty. Sometimes tired, drained, unsure, and still remain steady underneath. Your emptiness does not mean you have disappeared. It may simply mean you are making room for rest, making room for healing, making room for a quieter version of yourself to return. The lake is generous with room. It holds the sky, the reeds, the moon's pale path, and the occasional falling star. It does not complain about the weight of reflection. It does not ask for payment. It simply offers space. If tonight you have been carrying worries, imagine placing them gently on the surface of the water, not to drown them, not to fight them, but to let them float for a while. Worries are often lighter than they feel. They become heavy when you clutch them. When you set them down, even briefly, they can drift. One worry might look like a small leaf. Another might look like a smooth pebble. Another might look like a paper boat folded hastily earlier in the day. Let them float. Let the lake hold them. The lake has held far heavier things than thoughts. And in the quiet, notice the moonlight. Moonlight is gentle because it is borrowed. It is sunlight softened by distance and reflection. It arrives without heat, without glare. It reveals edges without demanding attention. Moonlight is a perfect companion for this part of our story, because it reminds us of another soft truth. Reality is often made of reflections. You do not experience the universe directly. You experience a translation light reflected, signals interpreted, meaning constructed. And that is not a tragedy. It is intimacy. It means the universe meets you halfway. It gives you raw beauty, and your mind gives it shape and feeling. In this meeting, your life becomes a story worth living, even when it is quiet, even when it is imperfect, even when you are simply resting at the edge of a lake at night. A faint sound comes from across the water, a small splash, perhaps a fish surfacing. The sound is brief, but it creates a ring that travels outward, widening, widening, until it fades into stillness. This is the lake teaching you again. Small things matter. A single breath matters. A single kind thought matters. A single moment of letting go matters. If you want, let your breathing match the lake. Inhale, as if you are drawing in cool night air through a doorway of pines. Exhale, as if you are releasing warm light from a lantern, setting it down on the water's surface. Each breath becomes a small signal to your nervous system. Nothing urgent is required. The world can wait. Tonight, you are allowed to be slow and gently unguarded. Right now, in the next part of our journey, we will follow the ripple inward toward the mind itself. We will step into the soft theater, where perception is made, where color is painted, where time is stitched into a smooth fabric. We will explore, gently, how the brain creates a world that feels continuous, even though it is built from tiny pieces of signal and delay. But for now, stay with the lake. Stay with the feeling of being supported by invisible hands. Stay with the calm knowledge that you do not need to understand everything to be safe inside it. If this part of the story is giving you a quiet comfort, you can leave a gentle comment for yourself. Just a word like soft, or steady, or here. And if you are ready, we will drift onward, like a ripple becoming a wider ring, toward the place where reality becomes personal. The warm, quiet darkness behind your eyes. There is a certain kind of quiet that only arrives when you stop trying to hold the world up. It is not the silence of an empty house, or the hush of a library, or the stillness after snowfall, though it can feel like all of those at once. It is the quiet that gathers behind your eyes when your attention relaxes its grip, the kind of quiet where thoughts do not disappear, but they soften, like distant lights seen through mist. By the lake, you let your gaze drift down from the sky and toward the water again. The moon's reflection stretches across the surface in a pale path, trembling with every small ripple. The reflection is not a copy. It is an interpretation made by angles, motion, and light. And yet, it is real, in the way that a lullaby is real, something that exists because it is felt. Now, very gently, imagine closing your eyes for a moment, not with effort, not as a command, just as a soft lowering of a curtain. Behind that curtain, another lake waits, one made of perception, memory, and sensation. It is the inner world where your brain receives the signals of reality and turns them into experience. If the outer lake teaches you about ripples and invisible forces, this inner lake teaches you about meaning. You can think of your mind as a quiet projection room. Somewhere in the darkness of your skull, millions of tiny events are happening. Cells exchanging signals, patterns forming, rhythms rising and falling. Yet what you receive from all that complexity is simple. A world that feels continuous. A room, a bed, a night, a body that belongs to you. A sense of here. That sense of here is one of the most tender miracles you carry. Because the world does not arrive to you as a finished story. It arrives as fragments. Your eyes take in shapes and light. Your ears take in vibration. Your skin takes in pressure and temperature. Your body sends messages about hunger, comfort, fatigue. Then your brain quietly, tirelessly threads those messages together into a single, smooth tapestry. It does this so well that you rarely notice it happening. You simply live inside the finished film. But tonight, we are watching the film with the house lights slightly raised, just enough to see that the magic is gentle, not frightening. If you have ever looked at a familiar object in dim light and briefly mistaken it for something else, a coat on a chair becoming a person, a shadow becoming a doorway, you have glimpsed how the mind works. It is not waiting passively for reality to announce itself. It is guessing, predicting, interpreting. It uses memory to make sense of what it sees. It uses expectation to fill in what is missing. And most of the time, those guesses are loving and helpful. Your brain wants the world to be navigable. It wants you to move safely through space. It wants you to recognize faces, avoid danger, find warmth, find belonging. It is an old instrument shaped by long years, doing its best with the information it receives. This means something beautiful. The reality you experience is not only made of physics, it is also made of care. A small example. Look at the moon in your eye imagination. The moon looks bright and round, calm and steady. But in truth, your eyes have tiny blind spots, and the eye image on your retinas is constantly moving in small jitters. The brain smooths it. It stabilizes it. It fills gaps. It gives you a moon that feels calm and whole. You do not see the raw footage. You see the edited version, and that is a kindness, not a trick. The same is true for color. The world offers light in many wavelengths. Your brain translates those wavelengths into the experience of blue, silver, gold, violet. The lake does not contain indigo as a substance. Indigo is the name your mind gives to a certain relationship between light and perception. The color is real in the way a feeling is real. It exists in you. And because it exists in you, it becomes part of your world. Sound works this way too. Outside you, there are pressure waves. Inside you, there is the hush of water, the whisper of reeds, the far-off sigh of wind. Your brain turns vibration into meaning. It decides what is important and what can be background. It lifts one sound forward and lets another soften away. If you have ever listened to rain and found it soothing, you have felt this in action. The brain could interpret rain as a warning, as something cold and inconvenient. But in a safe room, on a safe night, it often chooses another story. Rain becomes a blanket of sound, a gentle permission to stop striving. You can change the story you live inside, simply by changing the way you attend. And here, under the sky, we can make a soft discovery that does not shock the mind, but comforts it. Your experience of the present moment is delayed, carefully assembled, and smoothed into a seamless flow. You are not living in raw now. You are living in a stitched now. That might sound strange, but it can be reassuring. It means the mind is always working to keep you steady. It means your inner world is not fragile. It is held together by a patient editor. Think of a seamstress at night, mending cloth by lantern light. Each stitch is small. Each stitch is quiet. But the result is strong. This inner editor is also why your sense of self can feel both stable and changing. You can feel like the same person you were years ago, and yet you can also feel that you are different. Both are true. The brain maintains a continuing story: your name, your memories, your patterns, your values, while also updating the story as you grow. The self is not a stone statue. It is a river with banks. The banks provide shape, and the water provides movement. It is life. Now, if you let your attention soften even further, you might notice something gentle. Thoughts are not always commands. They are often weather. A thought can drift in like a thin cloud, an unfinished conversation, a task you forgot, a worry with no clear edge. The mind treats thoughts as if they are urgent, because that is part of its protective design. But here, in this quiet story, you can practice treating thoughts like clouds over the lake. They appear, they move, and they change shape. You do not need to fight them. You do not need to follow them. You can watch them pass and return to the water, to the breath, to the quiet sense of being held. If you are listening tonight from a busy place, a city apartment, a house where other people are still awake, a room with faint lights from devices, you can still do this. Calm is not only a property of the environment. Calm can also be a posture of the mind. And because each mind edits reality differently, compassion becomes easier. You may remember times when someone misunderstood you, or when you misunderstood someone else. Tonight, you can see those moments as two different edits of the same scene, two different films, made from the same raw light. The differences were not always about love or intention. Sometimes, they were simply about perception, history, and the hidden cuts the mind makes. If that feels tender, you can let it soften you. You do not need to replay old scenes sharply tonight. You can simply let the insight rest. People live inside slightly different versions of the world, and that does not make the world less real. It makes the world more human. Now, return to the lake's surface again. Notice how it reflects the stars, but not perfectly. The reflection wavers, it blurs, it shifts, and still, it is beautiful. In fact, the wavering is part of the beauty. A perfectly still mirror would feel cold. A living reflection feels warm. Your mind is a living reflection. It is allowed to waver. It is allowed to blur. It is allowed to soften edges. And sometimes, that softening is the beginning of healing. If tonight's story is touching something quiet in you, you can ask yourself a small question. One that does not demand an answer, only a gentle noticing. When was the last time you felt truly at peace, even for a minute? Maybe it was a morning with sunlight on the wall. Maybe it was the smell of coffee, or the sound of someone you love moving in another room. Maybe it was the way a street looked after rain, the pavement shining like black glass. Or maybe it was long ago, and the memory feels distant but still warm, like a lamp seen from far across the water. If a peaceful memory comes, let it sit beside you. If nothing comes, that is fine too. Peace does not have to be retrieved from the past. It can be grown, slowly, in the present, like reeds returning each spring. And because we are moving through layers, we can take one more gentle step inward. Attention. Attention is the beam of a flashlight in a dark room. Whatever it touches becomes vivid. Whatever it leaves becomes shadow. The world does not change, but your experience of the world changes. When you hold attention on the lake becomes your whole universe. When you hold attention on a worry, the worry becomes a whole universe too. This is not a scolding. It is a tender truth. It means you have a choice, even when you are tired. you can place attention somewhere softer, on breath, on the feeling of support beneath you, on the idea that reality has layers, and the layer you need tonight is the one where you are safe. In the next part of our journey, we will follow attention outward again, not toward urgency, but toward history. We will walk into an old archive by lamplight, where ancient people once tried to map the sky with stories and stone. We will see how civilizations used light, water, and time to build meaning that still reaches us. For now, let your inner projector dim a little. Let the film slow, gently. If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. Just a small word that feels kind. And if tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Then, like a ripple returning to stillness, let your awareness settle, ready for the next soft page we will turn together. The lake stays with you. Its stillness follows like a soft shore. As you walk, the ground rises toward old stone buildings tucked among trees. The path is lit by moonlight and a few lanterns, small pools of warm gold. Ahead, there is an archive, not a grand, modern library with bright fluorescents and humming machines, but an older kind of archive one built for quiet. Its walls are thick, its windows are narrow, the door is heavy wood, rubbed smooth at the handle by many hands. When you push it open, it yields without complaint, as if it recognizes you as someone who has come for peace rather than urgency. Inside, the air is cooler and faintly scented with paper and dried herbs. A long corridor stretches forward, lined with shelves. The shelves hold scrolls and bound books, star charts pressed flat between boards, and little boxes labeled in careful handwriting. A few lamps burn low, their flames steady, their light soft enough that shadows stay gentle. You can hear your own footsteps, and in the distance, the soft ticking of some unseen clock. And this is where the story shifts, very slowly, from the inside of your mind to the long memory of human beings. Because before we had telescopes of glass and satellites of metal, we had something else: attention, imagination, and the need to find patterns in darkness. You stop at a table near the center of the hall. On it lies a large book, open to a page filled with a sky map drawn in ink. The stars are marked as tiny dots. Lines connect them into shapes. Beside those shapes are names written in languages that feel like distant music. These are not the stars as they truly are. These are the stars as we learn to live with them. For thousands of years, people looked up and made stories, not because the sky demanded stories, but because the human heart tends to soften when it can place meaning into vastness. A constellation was not only a pattern, it was a companion, a way to say, we are not alone beneath this darkness. If you let yourself imagine it, you can see it clearly. An ancient shoreline, a small fire, a circle of tired travelers. Beyond the firelight, the sea is black and calm. Above them, the sky is crowded with points of light. Someone points upward and speaks a name. Another person repeats it. A child listens, half asleep, and the name becomes part of the child's inner world, an inheritance of wonder. This is how knowledge began, not as data, but as shared calm. On another shelf, you find a clay tablet replica, etched with tiny marks. Nearby is a sketch of a stone structure aligned with sunrise. There are pages about old calendars, about the way shadows move across a wall, about the careful placement of pillars, so that on one day of the year, a beam of light slides through a narrow opening and touches a specific stone. Those builders were not chasing spectacle. They were making time visible. They lived close to seasons. Their lives depended on the return of rain, the lengthening of days, the quiet promise of spring. The sky was a clock, a compass, and a form of comfort. It told them, again and again, that patterns return. And when you are tired in modern life, when your days feel too full and your nights too short, There is something healing about remembering that humans have always searched for repeating rhythms. We have always needed a sense that life is not random chaos, but a gentle cycle. You wander deeper into the archive and come to a small room with a domed ceiling painted midnight blue. Tiny golden dots cover the dome like a handmade sky. Beneath it stands a round table with a bowl of water placed at its center. The water is perfectly still. When you lean closer, the painted stars above reflect on the surface, doubling the sky. One overhead, one below. Two heavens, held by a bowl. This is a quiet lesson ancient people understood intuitively. Water is a mirror of the cosmos. Sailors learned it first. At night, on calm seas, the stars appear twice, once above, once in the dark water. The horizon becomes a thin seam between worlds, and in that seam, the mind feels both small and strangely safe, as if vastness itself can be held without fear. You might have felt something like this before, standing near an ocean at night, hearing waves roll in and out, watching moonlight scatter on the surface like spilled silver. The sound is steady, repetitive, and kind. The ocean does not rush you. It does not demand anything. It simply breathes. The archive seems to breathe too. You find a book about ancient navigation. It shows how people used the North Star, how they followed the rising and setting of certain constellations, how they measured angles with simple tools, and how they trusted the sky when the world below was dark and uncertain. There is a soft discovery tucked into those pages. Much of what we call civilization was built on quiet observation, the patient act of noticing where the sun rises, the humble act of marking a shadow's edge, the steady act of returning night after night to the same patch of sky, noticing, returning, remembering. If your life has felt scattered lately, you can let this be comforting. You do not need to fix everything at once. You can return to one small practice, one small rhythm, a cup of tea at the same hour, a short walk, a few minutes of sky at night. These are not trivial. They are how a nervous system learns safety again. You move to another shelf, labeled Stones and Light. Inside are sketches of pyramids, temples, and tall columns that catch sunrise like a promise. One drawing shows a narrow corridor inside a monument, aligned so that once a year, a star appears precisely in a small window. Another shows a staircase where, at sunset on an equinox, the shadows form the shape of a serpent sliding down the steps. These are not tricks. They are conversations between architecture and the heavens, and perhaps that is why they feel so peaceful to think about. Because they remind you that people have always tried to build bridges between the human scale and the cosmic scale. We placed stones carefully so that light would arrive exactly as expected. We made team touch matter. We made the invisible visible in a quiet way. This is what your mind does too. Your mind is an inner monument. It is built of patterns. It is aligned to rhythms. It lets certain memories enter, like starlight, through a narrow window. It lets certain feelings return, year after year, like seasons. And sometimes, when the mind is tired, the alignment gets slightly off. The light that used to feel warm might feel dim. The season that used to bring joy might bring heaviness. But alignment can be repaired gently, not by force, by small adjustments, by patience, by letting the nervous system remember that it can trust repetition. A note card falls from a book as you pick it up. It is written in simple, careful letters. Even the oldest sky is made of moments. You hold that sentence without analyzing it. Moments. That is what your life is made of too. Not one endless struggle, but many small moments. Some bright, some dim, some ordinary, some tender. And tonight is one of them, a moment where you are allowed to rest inside a story. You walk back toward the domed room with the bowl of water. You sit again, and you look down at the reflection. The stars tremble slightly as your breath moves the air. The tremble does not ruin the reflection, it makes it alive. This is another soft truth. Stability does not require perfect stillness. A stable life does not mean an unchanging life. It means a life that can ripple and return. A life that can bend and not break. A life that can feel tired and still continue. If you are listening tonight from a place of worry, you might be tempted to think you are behind. Behind in work, behind in relationships, behind in health, behind in peace, but the sky does not judge you for being behind. The stars simply shine. The seasons simply turn. The lake simply reflects. You are allowed to return to yourself at your own pace. If tonight's story has reminded you of a beautiful memory, an old night drive, a childhood sky, a quiet conversation, feel free to share it below. Your memory might become a lantern for someone else. Here, no one rests alone. And now, we reach a gentle turning point. One that does not jolt, but opens. Because in this archive, among maps and stones and water, you begin to sense something that has been present all along. Reality is not only what exists out there. Reality is also the way human beings have learned to live with what exists. We do not merely receive the universe, we participate in it by noticing, by naming, by remembering, by building meaning. This is not a mystical claim, it is a tender human fact. The star chart is not the sky, but it changes how the sky feels. A calendar is not Time, but it changes how Time is lived. A story is not reality, but it changes how reality is held in the heart. And so, the question becomes softer, more personal. What story are you living inside tonight? If the story has been heavy, if it has been hurried, if it has been harsh, you do not need to rewrite it all at once. You can begin by turning one page. You can begin by adding one quiet line. Tonight, I am safe enough to rest. In the next part, we will leave the archive and return to the open air. We will walk along the shoreline again, and the lake will show us how meaning, like moonlight, can be borrowed and shared. We will explore how the world can be uncertain in its deep layers and still feel gentle in our lived layers. For now, let the archive's lamps burn softly in your eye imagination. Let the bowl of water hold two skies. Let the old maps remind you that human beings have always found calm by looking up. If this part brought you ease, leave a gentle comment for yourself. Just a word that feels like warm light. And when you are ready, we will step back into the night. You step out of the archive, and the door closes behind you with a quiet click, like the last page of a book settling into place. The night air meets your face again, cool, clean, and softly alive. Above the trees, the sky is still wide, still patient, still scattered with distant light. The path back to the lake is familiar now. Lanterns mark the way in small, warm circles. Your footsteps feel slower than before, not because you are tired, but because something in you has learned the comfort of moving without urgency. When you reach the shoreline, the water looks darker, as if the lake has deepened into itself. The moon's reflection is thinner now, a pale ribbon stretched across a surface that barely moves. A faint mist hovers near the reeds, turning the edges of the world soft. You choose a place to sit, and for a moment, you simply listen. The lake whispers, not in words, but in textures. The hush of water against sand, the distant creak of a branch, the delicate rhythm of insects speaking in low tones. Your breathing joins those textures, and the night becomes a single, gentle fabric. In the archive, you felt the long memory of human beings. Here, by the water, you feel something even simpler, the present moment, unadorned, unforced, And this is where a soft kind of expansion begins. Because if reality has layers, matter and force, perception and meaning, then perhaps the layer you are living in right now is not only yours. Perhaps it is shared. Look at the lake again. It reflects the sky, but not in a perfect mirror. It reflects it in a living way, with tiny movements that change the eye image from second to second. And yet, if someone stood on the opposite shore, they would see the same moon, the same band of stars, the same general shimmer. Their angle would be different. Their eyes would be different. Their mind would edit the scene differently. But the lake would still be holding the sky for both of you at once. This is the gentle truth that can calm the heart. We do not live in separate universes. We live in overlapping ones. Each person carries a private world, a set of memories, associations, sensitivities, and expectations. And yet, those private worlds touch. They meet in the same light. They breathe the same air. They hear the same rain. They stand beneath the same sky. If you have ever felt alone, this is something you can hold softly tonight. The world is not only inside you, it is also between you. Between you and the people you love. Between you and strangers passing on a sidewalk. Between you and the distant listener who is hearing this story at the same time. Somewhere, someone else is settling into bed, adjusting a pillow, turning the volume down just slightly. Perhaps they have had a difficult week. Perhaps they are carrying a quiet grief. Perhaps they are simply tired of thinking. They are here too, listening, letting the night do its gentle work. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. You might notice how your body responds as you imagine this shoreline. The shoulders drop a little, the belly softens, the jaw loosens. These are small signals, but they are real. The body's way of saying, I can stand down for a while. If you carried stress like a heavy bag all day, you do not need to throw it away. Just set it beside you for a moment, the way you might set down a coat at the end of a long walk. Let the lake keep watch. Let the mist be a curtain. Somewhere beyond the far shore, other lives are settling too. Each heartbeat a quiet metronome. Each breath a small returning tide tonight. Let the distant stars be patient witnesses to your rest. Just breathe, and let the night carry you gently now. Now, let us take one calm step deeper into the idea of shared worlds. Imagine two people watching the same meteor streak across the sky. One sees it and feels wonder, as if the universe is offering a private message. Another sees it and feels nothing, because their mind is elsewhere, focused on a conversation from earlier in the day. The meteor is the same. The light is the same. Yet the experience is different. This difference is not a flaw. It is the natural result of perception, attention, and meaning. Reality has layers. The external event, the internal interpretation, the personal story. And yet, what makes this soothing is that none of these layers needs to cancel the others. A meteor can be a physical object burning in air, and also a symbol of passing time. The lake can be water obeying gravity, and also a mirror for memory. You can be a body made of star-born elements, and also a person who needs gentleness. Illusion does not make the world less real. It makes the world livable. Consider the way your brain creates color. The lake does not possess blue as a substance. It reflects wavelengths, and your mind paints blue inside you. Two people might see slightly different shades. One might call it navy. Another might call it indigo. Another might simply call it night. The lake remains. The differences are in the translation. In that translation, there is room for compassion. When someone's world feels harsher than yours, it may be because their inner editor has learned to highlight danger. When someone's world feels brighter than yours, it may be because their inner editor has learned to highlight safety. These editors can change over time, often slowly, often through repeated experiences of care. Tonight, this story is one small experience of care. If you like, you can ask yourself gently, what has my inner editor been highlighting lately? Has it been highlighting deadlines, regrets, and pressure? Has it been highlighting small comforts, like warm tea and quiet rooms? There is no correct answer. There is only noticing. And noticing is the first step toward softness. A breeze passes. The mist shifts. The moon's ribbon on the lake trembles and then steadies again. The change is so slight it feels like the night is breathing. This breathing leads us to another soft discovery about time. Time, in the human mind, is not only a sequence, it is also a feeling. Some evenings feel endless. Some months vanish in a blur. Some memories remain bright for decades. Others fade in weeks. The physics of time may be measured with clocks, but the experience of time is woven with emotion, attention, and meaning. That is why a single quiet night can feel healing. Not because it erases the past, but because it changes the texture of the present. And the present is where the mind rebuilds the past. If you have been living in a rushed rhythm, the body learns to stay alert. The nervous system tightens like a fist. Sleep becomes a negotiation. But when you offer yourself a slow rhythm like the lake's ripple and return, the body begins to remember another way to be, a slower way, a kinder way. And here is the soft twist of tonight's journey, the one that does not shock, but opens a door. You do not experience reality directly. You experience a story, not a fake story, an honest one, an adaptive one. A story created by your senses, your brain, and your life. You experience the world as your mind makes it available to you. And that means, gently, that your world can become softer when your mind becomes safer. This is not about pretending problems do not exist. It is about letting your nervous system step out of emergency mode. It is about allowing the inner editor to stop sharpening every edge. Under the same sky, in the same physical universe, two versions of reality can feel profoundly different, depending on how safe the body feels. So tonight, by the lake, you are practicing safety. The mist is not a threat. It is a blanket. The darkness is not a danger. It is a rest. The vastness is not an abyss. It is a home. If tonight's story is helping you feel even slightly more grounded, let that matter. Small shifts accumulate, like ripples overlapping until the surface changes. Now, imagine walking along the shoreline for a few minutes. The sand is cool, small stones press gently underfoot. Every so often, you see a shell or a piece of driftwood pale in moonlight. The lake stays beside you, and the sky stays above you, and you are held between them like a quiet bridge. In this walk, notice something tender. The boundary between you and world is softer than you think. Air enters your lungs and becomes part of you. Water in your body once moved through clouds and rivers and oceans. The atoms in your bones were forged in ancient stars. You are not sealed off from reality. You are made of it. And if you are made of it, you belong in it. Sometimes people fear the idea that reality is layered, that perception is constructed, that the world is partly interpretation. They worry it makes everything uncertain. But the lake shows us another possibility. Layers can be comforting. Layers can be warm blankets, one over another, each adding softness. The deepest layer, the physical universe, continues steadily. The middle layer, perception, adapts to keep you safe. The outer layer, meaning, allows you to feel connected. And tonight, you are resting in the gentlest part of that structure. The layer where you can simply be. When was the last time you let yourself simply be, without fixing anything? If an answer comes, let it arrive quietly. If no answer comes, that is also fine. The question itself can be a soft doorway. As you finish your shoreline walk, you return to your spot and sit again. The mist has thickened slightly, and the far shore is less visible now. The world feels smaller, more intimate, as if the night has drawn the curtains. In the next part, we will let the story widen again, not with urgency, but with a calm kind of awe. We will follow the lake's reflection into the sky and imagine, gently, what it means to be a moment of awareness inside a universe of long, patient light. For now, rest here. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. And if you would like more peaceful nighttime journeys, don't forget to subscribe for more soft lanterns in the dark. The mist above the lake grows thicker, and the far shore becomes a suggestion rather than a line. The world feels closer now. Water beside you, reeds nearby, the cool air brushing your skin with the gentlest touch. Yet above that small intimacy, the sky remains vast, as if two different scales of reality are resting together in the same moment. The near and the infinite. You tilt your gaze upward again. The stars do not rush. They do not flicker with urgency. They simply shine, steady in their distance, like quiet thoughts that do not ask to be solved. If you imagine the lake as a mirror, then the sky is the original page. And tonight, you can read that page without pressure. One line of starlight at a time. Somewhere high overhead, the Milky Way stretches faintly across the darkness, a soft band of pale glow. It is easy to forget what that band truly is. It is not fog. It is not a cloud. It is a crowded river of stars, so many distant suns that their light blends into a gentle haze. You are inside that river. That is the first calm expansion. The night sky is not only above you, it is also around you. The galaxy is not a picture you look at from outside. It is the vast neighborhood you live within. Even when you are focused on ordinary things, like a cup of coffee, an email, a quiet drive home, the earth, this lake, this single listening moment, everything is moving together through that galactic river, as if we are all riding a slow, invisible current. There is no need to imagine the speed. Speed can wake the mind. Instead, imagine the steadiness. A long, quiet drift. Now notice something else. The stars look close, but most of them are unimaginably far. The light you see began its journey before you decided to listen tonight, before you turned down the lights, before you placed your head on a pillow. Some of that light began traveling before you were born. So the sky is not only space, it is time. Each star is a small message that says, I was here. Each photon is a tiny traveler that crossed darkness to reach your eyes. The universe is constantly sending these travelers, and your mind is constantly receiving them, turning them into calm brightness on the inside. If you let that settle gently, it can soften something in you, because it means you are not cut off from the vastness. You are in conversation with it. Even if the conversation is silent, a faint breeze passes and the mist shifts. Somewhere, a single frog calls once, and the sound fades, leaving the night even softer again. The lake's surface trembles in tiny ripples, and the stars reflected there wobble softly, as if they are breathing with you. This is where the story reaches its softest turning point, its gentle climax. Not a loud revelation, not a shocking twist, but a beautiful reframe. Reality is not a single hard object. Reality is a relationship. It is the universe offering signals, light, vibration, gravity, motion, and your mind offering interpretation, continuity, meaning. In that relationship, a world appears. Not a fake world, but a lived world. A world that is real, because it can be touched by your senses and carried by your memory. And because minds differ, each person's lived world differs slightly too. That difference does not separate us, it explains us. It explains why one person finds peace in rain, while another finds rest in silence. Why one person remembers a childhood street by its smell, and another remembers it by the angle of afternoon light. Why some hearts soften under the ocean, and others soften under trees. We overlap, and we differ, and the overlap is enough to build community. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. If you like, imagine the listeners of this story as small lights scattered across a map. Apartments in cities, houses in suburbs, rooms in quiet towns, a car parked somewhere safe, a hotel bed during travel. Each person has their own ceiling, their own sounds, their own private worries. And yet, in this moment, there is a shared shoreline, a shared mist, a shared sky. That is not sentimental. It is simply true. Now, let your attention widen one more step. Beyond the Milky Way, there are other galaxies, islands of stars floating in a sea of darkness. One of them, Andromeda, is so far away that its light began traveling long before the pyramids were built, long before the first written songs, long before the first known names were spoken. And yet, that light reaches us. It reaches you, in a quiet way. It is visiting your life tonight. There is something tender about that. The universe is generous with its messages. It keeps sending them, even when we are busy, even when we are tired, even when we do not look up. And sometimes, on nights like this, we remember to receive them. If you are listening from a place of stress, you might feel a small worry rise. If everything is so vast, do I matter? Let the lake answer softly. A single ripple changes the whole surface, even if only for a moment. A single lantern changes the mood of a whole room. A single kind sentence can change the direction of a whole day. Scale does not decide meaning. Relationship does. You matter because you can feel, because you can notice, because you can offer gentleness, and because you can be gentled by the world in return. In the language of the night, your awareness is not a mistake. It is a small window the universe has opened to look at itself, and that is the calmest kind of awe. Not, I am nothing, but I am a living part of this. Now, let your attention return from the galaxies to the lake again. Notice how the water holds the moon's path. Notice how the mist softens the far edge. Notice how your breath keeps moving, steady, unforced. You do not need to hold the whole cosmos in your mind. You do not need to understand every layer. You only need to rest inside the layer that is kindest tonight. The layer of breath, the layer of safety, the layer of quiet belonging. You can imagine the sky as a slow archive of journeys, not only of light, but of human attention. Long ago, someone stood on another shoreline, perhaps beside an ocean that breathed in and out like a sleeping animal. They did not have bright screens or busy calendars. They had a fire, a blanket, a few people they trusted, and the same stars you can see now. They watched those stars quietly, without needing to prove anything. They noticed that some stars never seemed to set, turning in a slow circle around a fixed point. They noticed that others rose in certain seasons and disappeared in others. They did not need to know the mathematics to feel the reliability. The sky returned, again and again, with patient patterns. In that return, they found courage, they found direction, they found the simple comfort of repetition. Tonight, you are not traveling across an ocean, but you are traveling across a day. You are crossing the distance between effort and rest, between the sharp edges of tasks and the softened edges of night. And like that ancient traveler, you can let the sky remind you, patterns return. Morning will come. You do not have to solve it all tonight. If your mind is still busy, you can give it something soothing to do. As you inhale, imagine you are drawing in the cool, dark blue of the night. As you exhale, imagine you are releasing warm gold into the mist, like a lantern becoming lighter. Inhale, deep blue. Exhale, soft gold. You do not have to keep perfect rhythm. The lake is not perfect stillness either. It ripples, and it returns. A bright star, near the horizon, holds your attention. You might not know its name, and you do not need to. Your mind naturally forms a relationship with familiar light, even when it is distant. Distance, tonight, does not need to feel cold. Distance can feel like patience. Imagine that light beginning its journey long ago, traveling through darkness for years you have never lived. It arrives here not with a loud announcement, but with a quiet touch on your eyes, and then a quiet translation in your mind. A star. So much of reality arrives like that, quietly, gently. One small touch at a time. A vibration becomes a sound. A wavelength becomes a color. A pressure becomes the feeling of being held. A pattern becomes meaning. This is why the earlier truth can be comforting. You are not trapped in raw reality. You are held in a world made livable through translation. And translation can be kind. If the day has been too loud, too fast, too sharp, your inner editor can learn again how to dim the lights. It can learn how to widen the gaps between thoughts. It can learn how to soften the edges of team. Now let the sky offer one more gentle image. Above you are crowded regions of light and wide regions of darkness. The universe seems to breathe between presence and openness. Stars gathered, space expanded. You can do the same. If you have been crowded inside your own mind, tonight you are allowed to become more spacious. If you have been holding yourself tightly, tonight you are allowed to loosen. You do not need to become someone else to find peace. You only need to return to the part of you that already knows how to slow down. That part is here now, listening. And in that quiet return, the vast sky does not swallow you. It holds you, and the lake, still dark and patient, holds the sky back. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. And if this part brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. Just a few words, like placing a small stone on the shore. In the next part, we will let the expansion settle into reflection. We will gather the wide sky back into something simple and human. Gratitude, forgiveness, and the gentle art of letting the day end. For now, stay with the dome of stars. Let it be vast without being heavy. Let it be quiet without being empty. Let it be a ceiling of soft light above the lake of your mind. The sky remains vast, but it no longer feels like a question. It feels like a presence. The lake remains dark, but it no longer feels like depth you could fall into. It feels like a floor of softness, a place where reflections can rest. This is the moment in the story when expansion turns into something quieter. Integration. Because wonder, when it is held gently, does not keep you awake. It can do the opposite. It can dissolve the sharpness of your day and replace it with a smoother perspective, one that makes room for rest. You let your gaze lower from the star field and settle again on the moon's path across the water. The reflection looks thinner now, drawn like a pale brushstroke. The mist blurs its edges. The whole scene has a dreamlike quality, as if the world is already halfway inside sleep. And in that dreamlike softness, you can begin to notice the true subject of tonight's journey. It was never really about atoms, or meteor dust, or ancient monuments. Those were lanterns, beautiful ones, hung along the path. The true subject is something simpler. How to feel safe inside a world that is big. How to feel grounded inside a reality that has layers. How to be human, gently, in the middle of vastness. This is where the lake teaches its quiet lesson again. You do not need to hold everything at once. You only need to hold what is in front of you. And you can do it with softness. Consider your own day. It might have been full of small frictions, traffic, deadlines, unexpected messages, the weight of unfinished tasks. Or it might have been full of quiet struggles, loneliness, worry, a sense that you are carrying something no one else can see, even when a day is fine. The modern world can make it feel like your mind is constantly asked to run. Tonight, the story is giving you permission to stop running. Not forever, just for now. And it does that by showing you something gentle. Reality has always been layered, and you have always been navigating layers. When you answer an email, you are navigating a layer of symbols and meaning. When you walk down a street, you are navigating a layer of space and motion. When you remember someone you love, you are navigating a layer of time and feeling. You do this constantly, without thinking about it, because you are built for it. So if you have felt overwhelmed, it does not mean you are failing at life. It means you have been doing a complex job, living inside a complex world. That job is not supposed to feel effortless all the time, but it can feel lighter when you remember the patterns. The lake reflects, the mist softens, the stars shine, the body breathes. Patterns return. You can too. Now, let's take a very human step. Gratitude. Gratitude is not a forced smile. It is not pretending everything is fine. Gratitude is simply noticing what is still supporting you, even in a hard season. Tonight, you can notice the simplest supports: a roof, a bed, or a chair, a device that brings a story to you, the steady rhythm of your breath, the fact that your heart continues beating without asking your permission. These are not small things. They are the quiet architecture of your life. And if you want, you can widen gratitude beyond your immediate surroundings. The lake supports the reflections. The atmosphere supports your breath. The planet's gravity supports your body, keeping you gently held against the earth. The invisible forces between atoms support the firmness of the world. You are carried by countless agreements that you did not have to negotiate. You can let that be comforting. Now, let us take another human step. Forgiveness. Forgiveness can be a heavy word. Tonight, we will not make it heavy. Tonight, forgiveness is simply the act of loosening the grip. Loosening the grip on how the day should have gone. Loosening the grip on something you said that you wish you could rewrite. Loosening the grip on a moment that keeps replaying, like a sharp scene in your mind. You do not have to erase the scene. You do not have to pretend it did not happen. You can simply let its edges soften. Remember what we learned about perception. The mind rebuilds the past each time it remembers. That means you can rebuild the past more gently. You can choose to remember without stabbing yourself with it. If you catch yourself replaying something tonight, you can say, softly, in your mind, "That was a moment. It passed. I am here now." And then return to the lake. Return to the moonlight. Return to the breath. This is not avoidance. This is nervous system care. The world will still be there tomorrow. The tasks will still be there. But tomorrow will be easier if your mind is rested. You might notice that the story has slowly changed your posture toward reality. At the beginning, reality might have felt like something hard and fixed. Now it may feel like something layered and soft. Not fragile soft. Soft like mist that can still cover a lake. Soft like night air that can still carry sound. Soft like a ripple that can still travel. Softness does not mean weakness. Softness means flexibility. The ability to bend, to adapt, to return. And return is the key. Because the day pulls you outward. It scatters your attention. It makes you feel like you must always be on. But night pulls you inward. It gathers you. It reminds you that you can return to yourself. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. And if you want to give a small gift to the community, you can leave a gentle comment, not only for yourself, but for another listener. Something simple like, "You're not alone," or "May you rest tonight." Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. Now, let's return once more to the central soft discovery, and let it settle like a blanket. Reality has layers. There is the outer world. Light, matter, forces, time, the steady turning of Earth. There is the inner world. Perception, memory, attention, the mind's editing. And there is the in-between world. Meaning, relationship, story. The shared space where human lives overlap. When you are anxious, you may feel trapped in the outer world. Trapped in deadlines, money, health, uncertainty. The feeling of too much. When you are lost in thought, you may feel trapped in the inner world. Trapped in worry loops, regret, future questions. But the in-between layer, the layer of meaning, can be a bridge. It can remind you that you are not alone, and that your life is not only a list of tasks. It is a lived story, and stories can be held gently. So tonight, your task is simple. Let the story hold you. Let the lake hold the sky. Let the mist hold the edges. Let your breath hold your body. And if you want, you can ask yourself one last, small question. Not to answer with words, but to answer with feeling. What would it be like to let today end kindly? Not perfectly. Kindly. Kindly might look like turning off the harsh internal voice. Kindly might look like letting tomorrow wait. Kindly might look like allowing yourself to be a human animal under a wide sky. No more and no less. You may feel your eyelids heavier now. You may feel your thoughts spacing out, slowing down. That is the story doing what it is meant to do, guiding you from busy to calm, from scattered to gathered. In the final part, we will let everything dim. We will return fully to breath, to the lake's hush, to the simplest layer of reality, safety. We will close the night softly, without introducing new ideas, without stirring the mind, letting the last words feel like a lullaby you can drift beside. For now, stay with the moon's ribbon on the water. Let it be thin, let it be quiet, let it be enough. The night has grown deeper now, not darker in a frightening way, deeper in the way a blanket becomes warmer after you've been under it for a while. The mist is thicker, the stars are softer at the edges, the lake is quieter, as if it has settled into its own slow breathing. You remain at the shoreline, or perhaps you have drifted in imagination back to your bed, your couch, your safe place. Either way, the lake is still here in the story, still holding moonlight, still reflecting the sky, still offering the same simple message it offered at the beginning. You do not need to hold everything alone. For a moment, let your attention return to your breath, not to control it, not to count it, just to notice it, the way you might notice the lake's ripple when a breeze passes. Inhale, and the chest rises. Exhale, and the body settles. There is a quiet honesty in breathing. It does not pretend, it does not argue, it simply continues. It is one of the deepest proofs that you are being carried by something steady. If thoughts are still arriving, you can let them arrive. You do not need to chase them. You do not need to solve them. You can let them float like small leaves on the water, drifting farther away until they become part of the dark surface. Tonight, reality can be simple. Reality can be the feeling of support beneath you. Reality can be the softness of air moving in and out. Reality can be the knowledge that you are safe enough in this moment to rest. Earlier, we explored layers, the physics beneath solidity, the mind that edits perception, the meaning that humans build with stories and light. All of that can remain true. All of that can remain beautiful. But now, the layers can settle. You do not need to keep exploring. You do not need to keep opening doors. Tonight, you are allowed to close them gently, one by one, and let the room become dim and quiet again. Imagine the observatory lamp being turned down until it is only an ember glow. Imagine the archive lamps being covered with glass shades, their light becoming softer, warmer. Imagine the dome of stars overhead becoming a little more distant, not because it leaves, but because you no longer need to look. The lake remains. The lake is enough. In the quiet, you can remember one simple truth. You don't need perfect knowledge to feel grounded. You don't need to understand the whole universe to belong in it. You only need to be here, breathing, letting the day loosen its grip. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, you can hold that memory like a warm pebble in your palm. You do not need to describe it perfectly. You can simply feel it. Its warmth, its softness, its quiet reassurance. If tonight's story did not bring a memory, that is fine too. The present moment can be the gentle memory you create now. A memory of being cared for by quiet words and calm images. Now, let the lake offer you one last image. The moon's reflection stretches across the water, but the mist makes it look like a path that fades into softness. It is not a road you must travel. It is simply a reminder. Light can exist without glare. Guidance can exist without pressure. And you, too, can exist without pressure tonight. Let the shoulders relax again. Let the forehead smooth. Let the tongue rest gently in the mouth. Let the hands unclench. If you are holding anything inside, an argument, a regret, a worry, you can loosen your fingers around it. Not because it doesn't matter, but because it can wait. It can sit quietly on the table until morning. The lake has held reflections for years. It can hold your thoughts for a few hours. There is a phrase some people carry through life like a small lantern. This too will pass. Tonight, you can make it even softer. This can rest. Your day can rest. Your mind can rest. Your body can rest. And if you are someone who often lies awake, watching the ceiling, trying to force sleep tonight, you can try something different. Not forcing, allowing the story to fade, allowing the lake to darken, allowing the breath to become slower. Not by command, but by natural drift. There is nothing you need to prove in sleep. Sleep is not an achievement. Sleep is a return to the body's oldest wisdom, a return to the quiet place where the world is still there, but you do not have to manage it. And even if sleep does not come quickly, rest can still come, calm can still come, the nervous system can still soften, and that softness is already a kind of healing. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. If this story brought you calm, you can leave a gentle comment for yourself. Something simple, like, "I'm here," or "I'm safe," or "Good night." And if you would like more peaceful nighttime journeys, don't forget to subscribe for more soft lanterns in the dark. Now, the words will become fewer, like a shoreline disappearing into mist, like a ripple fading into stillness, like starlight dimming behind your eyelids. Breathe in and breathe out. Let the lake hold the sky. Let the night hold the lake. Let your bed hold you. Let your breath hold the moment. Nothing more is required tonight. Good night.